Oh, here we are. Sports betting, college students, Recovery Freedom Circle. Oh, today's going to be an excellent episode of the 1% in Recovery podcast. As we always encourage people to laugh every day, to work hard in relationships, work hard in recovery, work hard in your job, school, business that you run, and to love unconditionally. Just put more love out there in the world and let all that love come back to you. Remember a few key things. Recovery is beautiful. Your EQ is your IQ, and you cannot outthink an emotional issue. Now, we encourage people to join the Facebook group. Link is down below. Recovery Freedom Circle. And so this is a community, so everybody gets to participate. You get to talk about your accomplishments, your goals, your dreams, what you're doing in recovery, as well as questions you may have. It could be on a specific step on the original 12 steps. It could be on the 12 steps explain the way I rewrote them to get people to recovery faster. Look, no one wants to spend and waste time really try to understand recovery so you get to live your best life. This is about you starting to live the life that you truly want. So just join the Facebook group and add, could be also a quote, could be anything that you find inspirational. So now let's jump into this week's episode. I have Nick here joining me on the 1% in Recovery podcast. How are you doing, Nick?
Doing fantastic. I'm honored to be here, and hello to my fellow addicts.
Excellent. So let's start things off. Tell the audience one thing you love.
I love to bowl.
So everybody wants to know, have you ever bowled 300?
In fact, I have twice.
Twice. Okay, remind people, how many consecutive strikes? That's 12, correct?
Correct. 12 in a row.
And the feeling that you got when you got the 12th consecutive strike?
Made me feel untouchable. No one was better than me, and that I genuinely can't do anything better. So the adrenaline rush was insane, and I don't think I'll ever feel anything like that again.
And see, that is the beauty, because that is something Nick earned. He earned those feelings of exhilaration, and that's what we're going to talk about and touch upon, and why gambling is always so fake. Because anytime you think that you won, even if you won, let's say, a 5-team parlay, you didn't do a damn thing. You just circled a few teams or prop bets. And it's never lasting. But something like bowling 300, that is something truly to be proud of. Especially to do it twice, and then to continue on. So now let's jump into this week's episode. Let's go into question number 1. Do you consider yourself a problem gambler or someone that struggled with gambling addiction?
Good question. I would identify as a gambling addict. I think a problem gambler is someone who's able to turn the switch off and only gets in trouble every once in a while with the gambling. But for me, I was an addict because when I was in action, it was constant and I was unable to turn it off no matter what I tried to do or how hard I called out.
Okay, so help the audience understand. So how old are you?
22 years old.
22. And how long did you really gamble like a gambling addict?
I'd say from age 19 to age 21 and a half.
Okay, so a good 2.5 years. And I think that's very important, because I think a lot of stuff around addiction now is accelerated. It's no longer like a 20-year run like I did between the age of 12 to 32. You were seeing, because it's the way they're pressing and they're almost making gambling, trying to speed up how fast or how many times you can gamble in an hour in a day.
I mean, you can bet whether it's like the first pitch is a strike,
right? The
first quarter spreads, like it's anything.
Well, I just put that on the sports betting podcast episode, that now before first pitch or tip off or kickoff, where it used to be 100%, you had to have your bets in. Now that's only 65%. So that means 35% of all sports gambling is done after the game has started. And that's, I think, a really big, and that shows you how quick then, if you start losing that bet initially, you're like, I got to catch up. I got to do something, and you can create a bigger hole. So tell people, how did you start? Where did this whole idea of kind of gambling begin, or what you think how it started?
So I think it's important to note that I've always idolized sports. Growing up, I played every sport year round, and watching my favorite teams like the Houston Astros, Texas Aggies, gig 'em.
Longhorns, but I do agree. Houston Astros, another World Series is in our grasp. Okay,
Houston
keep going.
Rockets, I mean, just some of those games going in person and watching on TV with my dad and my brothers is some of my favorite childhood memories. And where the gambling comes in, that I've always done on the side with friends, like whether we're playing golf, whether we're bowling, trying to prove to each other who's the best, and to add more money on the line makes it more exciting. But I think when the gambling got out of control is the fact that I had raised a lot of money working and mowing lawns in the neighborhood, that when I went to college and didn't have my parents and people over my ear saying, "What are you doing with your money and what are you doing with your time?" It allowed me to get reckless, and through fantasy football and just watching other games, I started betting, and the rest is history. You have a podcast on here that talks about the winning phase, the losing phase, and the desperation phase. I like to think my winning phase didn't last very long. I had a couple weeks where I win a couple bets, and I'm like, wow, like I can make some money pretty quickly. This is exciting.
You're going to be rich.
Yeah. Little did I know, but
You went from rich man to poor man.
It's okay.
We all did. So you're not alone. I tell people all the time, it's like, hey, it unfortunately, and I keep telling people, it's not a fair fight. The odds are heavily favored into the house, the casino, the sports book. So that's why they make billions of dollars, and we're hopefully winning a few thousand. I mean, the whole psychology is even off. But
it really is a losing game, though, because once they get you in that losing phase, they can turn it into the desperation phase real fast by throwing all these promos.
And then you start gambling stupid. And then you're just doing things that you get, games or sports that you never would have, and then you just create even bigger losses. But I want to hear, this is an important thing, especially for, I think, because since you're a college student, you're someone who's early 20s nowadays. So there's so much, because when I gambled, there wasn't, gambling was always under the radar. I had to go find a bookie. But now you have so many states supporting sports betting. Tell people, is it the lure because of the heavy advertising, or is it was thinking that you're going to be able to get rich quick? Was there one kind of mentality that was, or is it a combination?
For me, it definitely was the get rich idea of, like I said, I was in the winning phase and I thought I knew what I was doing. Like, you win some crazy bets, like turning $25 into $750 in a day, and you're like, I'm him. Like, no one can touch me. So I would say that. However, when I tried to stop quitting, I'd see advertisements. Like, if you watch a football game, I challenge all of you guys to just count how many advertisements are related to sports betting in a given commercial break. Because I would start doing that, it would drive me crazy. They'd be like, here's the newest promotion on sports betting. And I'm just like, I cannot get away from this. It is literally everywhere, not only in our media with sports being propped up, but it's just hard to turn off. Like, alcoholics, they just can avoid going to the liquor store. But for me, whenever I go on my phone, there's always that temptation.
Right, that's the thing, because now gambling is always going to be on the mobile phones, much more so than some type of brick or mortar casino. That's, you can be in bed. I know plenty of guys who are gambling, and their wife or girlfriend is just sleeping with them in the bed, and they're sitting there gambling. Tell something, because the other thing is also the influencers. That's also a big, like, they're smart. The DraftKings, FanDuel, or Fanatics, all of them are kind of, you got Kevin Hart, you have Gronk, you now have LeBron, you have all these guys just pushing gambling like it's just some fun activity. And I always say, gambling is gambling. they like now they're trying to change it. They're trying to make it, really nice. Gambling's entertainment. Did you find gambling entertaining, or did you find it? This is becoming now high anxiety, high tension. I'm constantly on edge.
I found it as entertainment, and I don't think because it was so, I guess, enticing. We talked about earlier how it's a fake thrill that it's ultimately going to lead you into shambles and worse negative feelings. But for me, it was entertainment and always believing the lie that my money was going to come back. I just needed to.
I'm glad you said it. Gambling is a lie. But hey, let's just jump into question number 2. Question number 2. Recovery. Tell people about what you like about the Recovery Freedom Circle, the benefits, because you've done other things. I mean, obviously you 12-step rooms, and I'm a big supporter of 12-step rooms. You've done therapy. I'm a big supporter of therapy. But tell people about the Recovery Freedom Circle.
So, yes, working with Hugo, it's been over 6 months now. They're close to 6 months. And the thing about Hugo is he sets a foundation before he starts. He says, what do you want with your life? Write down your goals. It doesn't have to be like, I'm going to be president of the United States one day. It's more, what do you enjoy doing? For me, that was, I really like to golf. I want to do well in my school, and I want to make better connections with those around me. And starting on that foundation allowed us to build and relate all of the content that we're talking about to my goals. Whereas I've gone to therapy and 30 minutes in, I'm saying, okay, this is my issue, this is my issue, this is my issue. And they're going straight to what is the root of the issue? And I think Hugo has done a better job of building my character up and making me believe that life is now. You say that all the time. Life is now. Like, yes, I still want to address the past, but if I'm just going to replay these thoughts over and over and over again, I'm never going to move on. And that is one thing about the 12-step rooms is you see people in there for 5-10 years and they're still replaying these thoughts. Like, I did this wrong and my wife still hates me. Like, yes, they've overcome gambling, but I think the shorter mentality of I want to get on with my life and I don't want to keep making these same mistakes has really helped me.
Right, because I like to say is like the original 12 steps, there's a lot of strength and there's a lot of truths in it, but no one truly changes based on a negative. Like we're going to talk about alcohol, we're going to talk about gambling, or same thing with therapy. I mean, I love therapy, but they always kind of like focus, okay, childhood or we got to change your triggers, what's your urge. And I think all that's important. But tell people that, how, because it's also about, I want to set, make sure your schedule, because I give out step 1 for free. And I give out questions on honesty for free so people can truly almost test drive everything, write down your goals, set your schedule, and also work on that subconscious because that really drives you. Because, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations on what you tell yourself in the morning or throughout the day.
Exactly. Yeah. So one thing I mentioned was golf. I like to play golf, and Hugo would always say, Nick, tell yourself you're going to break 70, break 75 when you go out there. Make it
shoot 75, not break. Because you always would say like break 80. And I say stop thinking about 80. Focus on I'm shooting 77 today, 76.
You'd say make it part of your subconscious, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? That means reminding myself over and over that this is the common goal and this is what I'm shooting for today, no matter how the circumstances change, that I am able to do this. One thing about the 12-step, back to that, is I think it does a good job of trying to get people to tell their stories. And that's what Hugo has helped me too, is he helps me look back, and because I guess the whole gambling phase, at times it's more of just a blur of like, okay, all of it just happened, and all of a sudden, like, I kept gambling and I lost all this money. But going through all the questions and looking at the character traits have helped me identify how gambling has changed me as a person and how I want to change that.
Yeah, it's actually leading right into question number 3. Because how I kind of revised this, originally we talked just about the 12 steps explained on how I was making each step much more digestible and easier to understand and more positive. But then by adding this questions on character, on honesty, on courage, on discipline, tell people how adding character development to the overall system recovery freedom circle gives you a better insight into yourself and self-awareness.
Character development is essential into not relapsing. Yeah, you can use willpower for as long as humanly possible, but eventually you're going to go back to what you want to do. So I think character development is more of just, it's more than just head knowledge. Like the classes I have at school, like I'm being taught by some of these people have PhDs in their area of study, and they give me a lot of head knowledge about, okay, this is what you need to think. But if I don't actually apply it in my life, I'm not actually going to learn and be able to retain the information. Same with Hugo. I consider him an expert in addiction. He's been in these 12 rooms for 20 something years. And,
over 25.
Okay, my bad.
No,
20,
that's good.
25 plus years.
Right.
And I think the character is a way of actually putting the steps into action of how do I see this in my own life? Because it's like, okay, we believed a lie, right? Yes, I believed that I was going to win money and I didn't. But through honesty and willingness, if I try to adopt those character traits, it's going to help me not believe other lies as well.
That's right. All right, so that kind of gives you a good insight into how Nick has been dealing with recovery, dealing with gambling addiction, dealing with sports betting, and on how the Recovery Freedom Circle truly is something innovative, creative to get more people to live their best life. How's your life now compared to a couple months ago?
My life is just wonderful.
Exactly. Life is wonderful. That's what we always tell people. Life is wonderful. So if you need more information, obviously the website is there too. Lifeiswonderful.love, LOVE. And we just want everyone to not only live life, enjoy life, but really do everything that your heart has a desire to achieve. So with that, we are going to end this episode of the 1% in Recovery podcast.